Hello and thank you very much for tuning in. Hello and thank you very much for pressing the play button. Yes, my name is Clive from Clive's Art and today I'm going to be looking at painting fur. Yes, that's interesting, isn't it? If that's something you'd be interested in, please stay with me. I'll invite you to join me in the studio after this short introduction and I'll see you then. Bye. And thank you very much for taking up my invitation to join me in the studio. I'm just having a little drink of tea and I'm just starting to think about fur. Yes, I want to show you how to paint fur. Now, we did the cat a couple of weeks ago and I showed you how to put short fur there and a black cat on a black background. This is quite difficult painting in one way, but a simple way to show you how to paint fur. Now, I want to take that one stage further. I'm going to be looking at something like a brown fur today. Still short hair, but I want to show you how to build up all those tones within the fur to give you some sort of realistic looking fur. So if you've got a brown dog, a brown cat or a horse or something like that, anything along those lines, this will work exactly that way. Now, so I'm going to go and set my palette up and have a little drink of tea and I will see you there. Okay, as we spin round to our desk, I've got in front of me the chart that I made a couple of weeks ago. Now, the video is there. The actual diagram, if you want to do it, you can either copy this from the video now, or you can go along to our closed group, which is Clive's 5 Art Family, and there you will see in my share albums, in the photo section, this chart where you can actually download it if you want to. Now, the colours I'm going to be looking at today are quite simple. We're going to need some burnt umber. I'm also going to be using, excuse me, some burnt sienna. And these are all brown tones because I want to do some brown fur today. I'm going to be using some raw sienna. There you go. And I'm going to be using some cadmium orange. Also in the mix, I've got some titanium white also. So they're not going to go onto my wet palette as such because I want to mix on the plate. And I'll be discussing the brushes in just a second. But I think first of all, we need to establish this grid. So I've got numbers from 1 to 20. They are parts. So if I say one part, it's just one little box. Okay, I got these slightly thicker, but it's the same difference. You can just mix more quantities of paint. But I'll go into that in just a second. But before I do that, I just want to take you back to the easel and we'll have a look at what I've set out already and I'll show you a little bit of what I've done and see if we can't replicate that. So let's go away. This way this time. Okay, as we spin round, as if by magic, my canvas appears. Yes, it does. There we go. There we go. There we are. It's in the shot. So, what have I got here? I've got some blocks of colour. Yes. Now, if you remember when we made these colour charts, I showed you how to do this. Now, I've already put some masking tape in place. I put some gesso over that, so we're going to make some blocks of colour. Now, these are the colours I'm going to be looking at because if you can see the first selection there, you'll notice that yes, it's quite a dark brown colour. Now you can play around with these colours, but I mean this is just a sample for you, and you can adjust these colours in any way you want. So this is going to be a short brown fur example, and we're going to be painting ours there. And these are the colours that I've actually selected for this. Now, these are recipes that I've picked up out of a book, which I will share with you towards the end. But I've also tweaked them to my own needs. So it's good to get a book, but then again, don't constrict yourself to those recipes. You can tweak these once you know a little bit about colour mixing. You can tweet them. You can tweet them if you want to, and you can put them on Facebook. No, but you can tweak them to whatever you want. So you can add a little bit of white, a little bit of black, or whatever. Once you get used to that, you'll be able to adjust them. So what I'm going to do is start off with a dark fur. Then we're going to go into the medium, and then we're going to go into the highlight. So like painting a tree, we put our dark colours in, then we put our second highlights, which is our mid colours, and then we increase the lightness of the tree to give us the highlights. And that's exactly what you do with fur. So that's not really complicated, is it? So think of it as a tree. Now, if you've painted trees with me before, you'll understand what I mean. Again, I reiterate, because this is a tutorial lesson. You put the dark in first, and then you put a lighter dark, which is the second tone, and then you put a lighter colour on top, and that gives you the depth, that gives you the shadows, the midtones and the highlights. And that's all you've got to think about: shadows, midtones and highlights. Trees, rocks, buildings, anything you paint has got shadows, midtones and highlights. Yes, it's as simple as that, isn't it? Let's get back to the mixing desk. Oh, I'm getting dizzy going around on this chair today. Okay, as you can see, we've just mentioned our chart. Now, the first colour I'm going to be looking at is a shadow colour, which is the darkest one on our chart. And if I can put my chart there, you should just about see that, as long as it doesn't fall. Okay, a little bit more this way, Clive. There we go. Can you see that? Yes, you can. So we're going to be looking at that colour there, which is the shadow colour. Now, to mix the shadow colour, we're going to look at our burnt umber. We need some burnt umber. Now, I tend to use the bigger part, but you can use the smaller ones if you want. What I suggest you do is when you do this, make sure that you don't do a big glob. You want to try and keep this equal. So 3 parts of burnt umber. That's 3 sections, as you can see. So I go section 1, section 2, section 3. Now you've got to try and keep that amount of paint equal. It sounds easier than it looks, I can tell you. So because of burnt sienna, and we're going to be needing 2 parts of burnt sienna, so we go to the next row and try and not put too much on. Try and keep that volume as equal as you possibly can, and that's all it is. There we go. So we got 3 parts of burnt umber and 2 parts of burnt sienna. Now what do? Well, we get our palette knife and we mix those together like that. There you go. That's it. Easy, isn't it? Make sure you mix this really well. And don't forget, acrylic paint dries darker when it dries. So you can always afford to go a little bit darker. Now, when I said you can tweak this, if you feel that, oh, it's not dark enough, then what I suggest you do, and I'll do it in this case, I'll just go, okay, just add another part of burnt umber. So I'll just fill that little box up. That's the small box. And I'll fill that up. So I know now that I've added 4 parts of burnt umber to 2 parts of sienna. And I'll make a little note of that, because when I come to mix this again, I'll have the same colour. Well, as reasonable, as accurately as you could possibly get it. That's all I'm saying, unless you've got micrometer scales and stuff like that, which you don't really want to do. But that's a nice colour. And as I said, it'll always dry darker. So what do we do with that then? Well, we get a pot, any little pot. I got one of these little thingy pots. I mixed some up earlier. And we will put that in our pot like that. Now, I'm not going to do it at this particular moment, but what you can do, you can extend that. So if you can buy yourself some extender, and I've got some here somewhere. Where is me extenders? I've got some extender here somewhere. I will have a look at that as I'm talking. There you go. This is extender. Now, you've seen me using this in the past. And what you do with extender is you mix this to the paint you've already mixed, and it does exactly what it says. It extends the paint. It increases and extends paint of volume economically, maintains opacity compared to the gloss medium. Mix extender with acrylic colour prior to the surface application. A matte result will be visible. So it's not going to be any different to normal acrylic paint. you will increase the volume of the extender added, clean equipment, blah, blah, blah. So if you add that to a little bit of paint, you'll get more paint. And that's all it is. This is the base. This is a base of your acrylic paint. So by adding that, so you can mix up a small batch, depending on obviously the painting you're doing. And if you want to extend that rather than mixing more, just add some extender. That's what it's for. That's what we use these things for in the studio. So I do encourage you to buy something like that. Okay, so let's clean our palette knife off, and we're going to mist the bottle, and we clean our little surface off like that. Okay, so we've mixed. I put the bin right over there, so I've got to be accurate, otherwise I'll get paint all over the walls. Okay, main colour. So the main colour, which is the second colour, okay, so we've put the dark in, we're going to mix our main colour now. So all that is 1 part of burnt sienna. Now we're going to need a fair bit of that, so if it says 1 part and you want a little bit more, add 2 parts. So we'll go 2 parts. There we go, 2 parts of burnt sienna. And you can increase that if you wanted to put 10 parts, you can put 10 parts, but you would adjust the formula. Okay, and in this case we got some raw sienna, which again is 1 part. So 1 part raw sienna to 1 part burnt sienna, but we've doubled the mix, so we need 2 parts of this. So we need a blob, roughly the same size as that. There you go. And don't squeeze these tubes too hard, otherwise they'll go everywhere and you'll have a mess. And you mix that together in exactly the same way. Now you're not going to need, as when you're doing fur, you're going to need more of the dark than you are of the medium. So always mix a little bit more of the dark up than you need. But don't mix so much of the mid-tone, because you're not going to use so much of it, and I'll show you why in just a moment. And what do we do with this? When we pick it up, we check it, and as I said, you can adjust the formula. We get a little wax pot, and I've already mixed some ready. We mix a little wax pot, we put that in our wax pot, and there we got our second colour. There we are, put that there, Clive. And washing our palette knife again. Now if you wanted to extend it, so you don't want to mix any more, then get a little bit of extender, that's fine. So I will go over a few points. It's important that I go over certain points a couple of times, because we get to know what to do. And as I said, this is a good tutorial at the end of the day for a little bit of colour mixing and a little bit of theory on fur as well. Now we're going to need the highlight colour. So what are we going to do there? We're going to need 1 part of raw sienna. Now you don't need as much of this, and I've got a little bit mixed earlier. So you're going to need 1 part raw sienna. So let's put 1 part raw sienna. And you can double it up or triple it up or quadruple it up. It's entirely up to you, depending on how much you want. But again, because this is a highlight colour, you don't want so much, because it's just highlights. So you don't want to mix so much. Don't mix too much. If you mix too much, then you can put a little bit of cling film over the pots and you can keep them, and but there is ways around that. We'll talk about that again. And what did I say? 1 part of cadmium orange. 1 part of cadmium orange. So let's just put 1 part of cadmium orange, and try and not to squeeze the pot too much. There you go. That's good. And then we're going to need some burnt sienna. So we're going to need 1 part of burnt sienna. So let's just put 1 part of burnt sienna. Try not to squeeze too much, because you don't take too much of that out. So we got 1 raw sienna, 1 cadmium orange, and 1 burnt sienna. And now we're going to need a little bit of white. We're going to need 1 part white. Now I've got to art this acrylic here because it's a lot easier for me to get out onto the palette. And I don't want a lot of that because it's quite a strong pigment. So it should be 1 part, and I put about half because I know how strong this is. So that's always good to remember. So we've got 1 part white, 1 part raw sienna, 1 part card orange, and 1 part of burnt sienna. And we'll mix all that together like that. And that looks orange. It does. And we've got our colour chart, we'll check it. And I know when that dries, it's going to dry to the same tone. So it looks bright, but obviously it dries about a shade or 2 shades darker. And that's what you've got to remember when you're mixing colours, especially in acrylics, that they will mix, they will dry a little bit darker. So there's our 3 primary browns that we need for this example. So I'm just going to clean up the palette knife and my palette, and we're going to go straight on to the blocking out and colour chart. It's always a good idea to clean up as you go along, and because it always helps. Okay, so let's go this way now. Okay, as we spin round, I magically grabbed some brushes and I had them ready. Yes, I did. Now, what brushes do we use for fur? Well, you've seen this little fan brush that I cannibalized and I used in the cat painting. That's always a good one for short fur. So we need to put that, let's put that in some water, get it soaking. Because why do we do that? Well, as you know, it's because the bristles and the fibers will soak up some water and they'll stop taking the moisture out of the paint, because we want to try and prolong the drying time of our paint. And that's just one of the ways we do it. I got 2 short flats. You've seen them so many times. They've done so many paintings and they're getting as old as me. Yes, but we put them in the pot. I've got a little tiny detail brush. It's like a mini script liner, right? You can see how small it is. So if you can get one of them, that's handy. Or a script liner or a detail brush, it doesn't really matter. Now I'm not going to put that in the pot to soak it, because if I do that, it's going to bend and it's going to misshape, and I don't want it to misshape. So what I'll do, I'll just put that in a bit of water and I'll leave it on the side of my brush rack and let that soak its water up. And this one is a bristle brush, which I've distressed, and I pushed it against a board like that, and I've splayed all the edges. And now hopefully you can see, if I let the camera focus, you should be able to see that all those little hairs are all splayed, and each one of them, when they pick up some paint, they're going to give me little fine hairs. It's easy, isn't it? It is. As long as you know what you're doing, painting, well, it's easy. It really is, honestly. And I don't say that to belittle anybody or anything like that. What I'm just saying is, anybody can learn to paint. If you believe you can paint, you can paint. So Clive, stop waffling, let's get to the canvas. Okay, so we're looking at the canvas now. Whoops. I nearly went for a swim. I nearly knocked my pot of water everywhere. Look, I'm getting too old to bend down that low. Okay, now I recommend you just do 1 block, so your dark, your mid-tone and your lights. Don't worry about what I'm doing there. You don't need to replicate that colour twice. I'm doing this just for you. So if you want to do one of these charts, pick up a cheap canvas, and what I recommend you do is mix some of the colours, put them on there, play around with some fur, and keep this. You can do it on cardboard, you can do it on paper, you can do it on whatever surface you want. I just happen to have a canvas, and do that and keep it as a reference, so you know if you want to paint fur again at that particular colour, then you got the reference. It's like the colour charts behind me. Okay, Clive, stop waffling. Right, well, let's get a short flat. Get some kitchen paper or kitchen roll in your hand. Take the moisture off, and we're just going to pick up a pot of our paint that we've actually just mixed, and we're going to place that in that box, exactly like we did when we did the colour charts. And this is what we want to do. Now you can see that it's going to take a little bit more than just one application. Now you can wait for that to dry, or if you're like me, you can just get a hairdryer, and today I have switched it on and we're going to dry that off. And just make sure that's okay, and then we'll just reapply another coat. You can see the first coat I went on that way, I'm going on horizontal and vertical, just for this type of box, because I want to make sure it's all covered. And again, we'll hit that with the hairdryer. And once more we will reapply, and I'm going this way again. There we go. You can see the colour is nice now, and it's matching up lovely. And we'll put that down and we wash our brush. Okay, in a time-honoured tradition, what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed the process up, because there's no point you seeing me paint the 3 blocks again. So I'll just speed this up just a little bit for you. So I've just washed my brush. I'm picking up my second colour and I'm going to repeat that process again. And picking up the lighter one, we need to do that again in exactly the same way. Okay, just getting a palette knife, and I'm just going to remove this masking tape very gently. Be careful if you've got a canvas, you don't damage the canvas when you're doing this, because believe it or not, I have actually made a hole in the canvas before now, but there is a way to repair that. And there you go. So if you look at those colours closely, you'll see that these are the colours that I mixed earlier, and these are the colours that we've just mixed. And you'll see by using the grid method, you've got a near as enough, no hardly any difference whatsoever in the colour. So these are the ones we mixed earlier, and these are the ones that we've just mixed, and you can see that method works really, really well. So even if you've put this painting down and you waited 3 or 4 weeks and you come back and your paint's dry or you haven't mixed enough, you can always replicate your mixes. You can use that method in any colour whatsoever. So what we're going to be doing now, we're going to be looking at the actual fur and how do we build the fur up. So that's quite a simple process, actually. It is. It's not as complicated as you might think. So I'm getting another bit of kitchen roll. All I'm doing in this particular instance is I'm just washing my brush, using a little bit of soap. There you go. Making sure I dry it as adequately as I can. I am then going to pick up my dark mix. That's the first colour we mixed, and I'm going to put that just underneath. So all we need to do now, if this is an animal, you could paint this. This is what we call the blocking out stage, and this is just putting in the fur. So let's continue this block, and you can see the way I'm scrubbing it. I'm not just doing that like we're doing with the boxes. I'm actually leaving the brush marks in place, because that all helps with you can see there's thicker parts, darker parts, lighter parts, and that's what fur is all about. So scrub it in. And look at your animal, look at your reference photograph, and try and get that. Now don't forget, you don't have to paint it as you see it in that respect. You just need to know how fur works. So you're not going to copy every single hair, obviously, but you're going to need to look at lights and darks, that's for sure. So that'll do as an example for now. So you can see it, I've left some thicker bits and some lighter bits. Now I'm not going to wash my brush, I'm just going to put that one side. I'm going to get the hairdryer on that. Okay, so we've done that, make sure it's reasonable, it's okay. Now you can see the raw sienna actually coming through, so that's the dark mix, but you can see that's the dark mix there, but this type of raw sienna colour is coming through. So let's just go back over and just darken up a little bit here and there again, because acrylics, as you know, is a layer painting process, and it's important that we get these layers built up. You can leave a little bit of light here and there, you don't have to go all over it. I tend to just be erratic at where I'm putting my paint. I want some nice dark areas, I want some little bit lighter areas. We're painting a representation. I keep saying this word, representation of a tree, representation of a rock, and that's all we're doing. This is just mimicking, trying to create an optical illusion of fur. And you can do this, it's easy. It really is easy, just needs a little bit of practice, and you can do this, I know you can. So you just need the practice. Get a little canvas like this and practice mixing paints, and before you know it, you'll be painting somebody's pet or your own pet. I'm just washing my brush, and I'm going to dry that once more. Okay, so what I want to do now is I'm just going to get my other short flat. There we go, making sure it's dry. I'm trying to splay the end a little bit. As you can see, it's all splayed. And I keep these brushes for different things. I'm picking up my middle colour, which is the second one we've mixed. And I'm just picking up a small amount of paint onto the brush. I'm taking it off like that on my kitchen roll. Now I'm just going to develop, and I'm just lightly dragging a little pattern, letting the bristles, the very tips of the bristles, do the work. And I'm picking up a little bit more paint and putting that onto my tissue paper like that, and I can take some off, and I'm just putting a thicker clump of furber there, not so much there, a little bit of a thicker clump of furber there, and I'm going to continue doing that all over this area. Now, because this is a lighter colour than what it's going on to, it's going to show up, but this is going to be subtle. Now you can do hair with this mixture as well, and when we go into painting long fur, oops, just picking up a bit more paint. When we're going to go into painting long fur, it's no different than painting a hair on a human's head. I'll show you how to do that. So just picking up those areas there. And it's quite a subtle, I'm not covering all the dark, I'm keeping some of the shadow marks in there, but this is quite a subtle way of giving it a mottled effect. This is what we call like a mottling. Then you can lighten that colour. If it wasn't bright enough for you, then you can lighten it, add a little bit more orange to it, or even add a little touch of white if you wanted to. But I mean, be careful you don't overdo that, because we're trying to get a nice short brown fur. Okay, so putting my brush away, I'm going to dry that off again. Now I'm going to go, where did I put my fan brush? Now I'm going to go into my fan brush. I'm taking the moisture off my fan brush. I'm picking up back into that colour. I'm picking up a little bit onto my fan brush now. Just taking the excess off, and I'm just going to go like we did with the cat. bit more texture to it. Reapply, try not to overbrush. Reapply. That's giving a little bit of texture now to that second coat, so we can actually see some individual hairs there, and that's what they are. So put that in the thing and we're going to dry that again. Now in this instance, Clive, where did you put that brush? In this instance, there we go. In this instance, we're going to go into the lighter one, which is the first one we've mixed. As you can see, I'm using, where you are, there we go. I'm using this bristle brush, which I mentioned earlier, which is all splayed and got fine hairs. So I like this colour, I'm going into that. And again, I'm just taking a bit of moisture off, adding just a touch of water to that, taking it off, making sure it's not clumpy. I'm on my kitchen roll, making sure that we've got some nice hairs. And then I'm just going to very lightly stroke the canvas with that. You can see you don't need a lot of this paint. I'm just putting a little bit more moisture onto my brush. You don't need a lot of this paint. Leave gaps. Get some of that shadow in there. Leave gaps. If it's not flowing enough, a little tiny bit of moisture. And then start again. Get those hairs. There you go. Dark area, that's what we did earlier when we put the first coat on. We left dark spots, leave them in place. A little bit of lighter there, a clump of fur, and a little clump of fur. Don't go all over like we did with the highlights on trees. Look at patterns, look for patterns. This is no different than painting a tree, it really isn't. Same principle. As I said, if you learn the principles, you can paint anything. Anything is possible. You just got to know the techniques and know the secrets. And we don't need to go to spend loads of money on lessons and things like that when we've got a fantastic resource like YouTube that we can learn from. And just keep building up. Put a couple of lighter areas in spots. A little bit lighter there, you know. Put a little clump of hair. There you go. And then find that very thin brush. Where did I put it? I don't know where I put it. There's our very thin brush. Now, what you need to do with this is get your paint and make it nice and runny. Look, like ink. Nice and runny. This is better doing it on a palette, obviously. I'm not using a palette today. Now this brush, this is where you can put little tiny individual hairs in. Now, as I said when we were doing the cat, this is quite time consuming, so it's worth practicing. And don't put them all like that. Look, you can see what I'm doing. I'm putting little wiggly lines in. So it's like as if the fur is all twisting on itself. I'm not going to do all this because it's going to take me too long. But you can see that I'm putting some little twisty lines in. You here and there like that, and these will all darken up. And this is what's going to give you the effect of fur. This is what's going to make your image pop. You just keep practicing and working on this, and you can spend hours doing fur. It depends how realistic you want it. But believe you can do it, and you will. And that's what it's all about. Is it doesn't matter whether if you've never painted before, you can do this. Trust me, it's easy. All it takes is a little tiny bit of practice. And thinking about hair, look at your pets. Look how the fur goes. Observe what's around you. And then before you know it, you'll be painting and people will go in, you're a wonderful artist. And anybody that can pick up a brush, anybody that can paint a painting, whether they're 3, 4 years old or 40, 80, 90, 100 years old, you're an artist. You are not a painter, you're an artist. Anybody that can put paint onto a canvas and turn out a wonderful piece of art is an artist. And don't let anybody tell you any different. Don't be afraid of criticism. Criticism is what makes you strong. Criticism is what keeps you going as an artist. Criticism gives you the strength to continue to improve, and we're all improving. And as you can see, that's a nice easy way. Nice big clump there, so let's make that into a little bit of a feature. And you just keep putting this light colour on, and you keep building that texture up until you've got what looks like fur. So I hope I've showed you some fantastic techniques there, and I don't say fantastic because I've done them, I say fantastic because you were going to do them, and I've got the utmost belief that you can actually achieve this, and you can actually take this particular lesson, this theory lesson from here, and paint an animal. Paint the cat brown. Paint that cat that we've done a couple of weeks ago in exactly the same way. Yes, practice it. I keep saying practice because practice is what makes us be able to do what we want to do. And don't forget, you put your mind to something, you will achieve it. What the mind can perceive, it will achieve. And that's what I say. As far as art is concerned, you don't need to go and spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on lessons when all you need is the basic techniques. And what I aim to show on Clive's Fiver Art is as many techniques as I've learned over the years to help you grow in your hobby, which is art. So all that remains me is to say is thank you very much for joining me in the studio today and taking up my invitation, and may God go with you. Have a good day, a good week, a good month, a good year, because I don't know exactly when you're going to be watching this. As you know, time is relative on YouTube. And please contact me in a normal way via email on my contact page on my website www.clivesfiveart.co.uk, where there's plenty of things in there, playlists. All my videos are there listed in playlists. Please go along and check them out. And there's other pages on there as well you can read. And if you want to pop along to Patreon, it's a public funded site where for as little as $1 a month you can help me and support me in the studio. If you just want to have a look, there's a video in there, and there's also freebies as well. So if you just want to go and have a look, please, I encourage you to do that and press the links below, or there's a little card that's going to pop down here. You can click on that. And if not, it's www.patreon.com/Clives5Art. So all it remains to say is thank you very much for taking up my invitation today, joining me in the studio on this lesson, and I will be looking into doing another one quite shortly. So thank you very much. Goodbye. Nice.